Welcome to Past Paradise, where we follow Jack Whittaker's life after winning a $314 million Powerball prize. From a successful businessman to one of the most notorious lottery winners, Jack Whittaker's narrative of victory, turmoil, and tragedy captivated the world. Whittaker's unexpected money led to altruism, extravagance, and personal loss, including legal issues, disasters, and heartbreaks that culminated in his death at 72. We'll explore Jack Whittaker's post-lottery existence and how an unthinkable fortune may have become an unfathomable demise, reminding us of the double-edged sword of enormous riches. Jack Whittaker, who? Andrew Jackson Whittaker Jr. was born in the West Virginian tiny hamlet of Jumping Branch on October 9, 1947. He was the son of Andrew Jackson Whittaker Sr., and his descendant was Andrew Jackson Whittaker Jr. Before becoming one of the richest millionaires in history and winning one of the largest Powerball prizes in the U.S., Andrew Jackson Whittaker Jr. was a self-made guy who enjoyed financial success. In primary school, he got to know his future bride, whom he married nearly immediately after graduation. Not long after, Whittaker launched his own construction business from the bottom up. In addition, he was dedicated to his home church and the family he and his spouse had established. That was before his incredible Powerball victory, when things began to go south. Among the locals, Jack Whittaker gained a lot of notoriety due to his fashionable look. He always wore elegant country clothing, making people compare him with the great country singer Johnny Cash. Jack's trademark item was his cowboy hat, which he wore with everything, including all-black clothing. At the time, he didn't have a distinct style from any other guy in the Midwest. He owned the town's construction firm and was well known to everyone in his hometown as a family guy. Whittaker lived in a modest house, drove a truck, and often stopped at his neighborhood deli for sandwiches. A normal morning. Jack Whittaker was well known in his community for his laid-back demeanor. In Hurricane, West Virginia, Jack was a regular customer at his neighborhood C&L Super Serve, where the cashier characterized him as polite and cheerful as if trouble were a stranger. Although Jack was well known in the community for his kindness, he was unaware that he would soon become well known for much more. In 2002, Jack arrived at the C&L Super Serve a few days before Christmas at his normal hour of shortly before 6:30 a.m. Brenda Higginbotham, 39, affectionately known as the Biscuit Lady, saw her regular client approaching and promptly began making his customary breakfast order. She said Jack made her joyful since he constantly made her grin. Jack's breakfast. Jack and Brenda were teasing one another like two longtime friends who had become close to one another over the years. As Jack arrived at the restaurant daily at the same time to fuel up his vehicle and grab breakfast for himself, they virtually were. He never had trouble eating the same thing daily: 2 biscuits with bacon jammed inside. Jack was so associated with that order that the other staff members knew how to fix it when he arrived, even if Brenda wasn't there. Jack and Brenda used to be teased by other workers for joke-telling so often that it seemed like they were having a rendezvous deal. Brenda would dismiss it with a chuckle and say, "That's not how it works." Play the lotto. A few days before Christmas in 2002, Jack made the same trek to the C&L Super Serves, which turned out to be the farthest thing from his usual destination. It would, in fact, permanently alter his life. Jack hardly ever purchased lottery tickets or played the lotto. He would only play if the prize was much more than $100,000, and he never really expected to win when he did. Jack said in his own words that he would only play the lotto if the jackpot was worth his while. If you're wondering why a few $1,000s wouldn't be worth his while, it's because he had already made over $17 million in net worth from his construction firm. Therefore, it makes sense that he wouldn't consider playing the lotto until it reached a size greater than that. Trying his luck. It may surprise you to learn that on Christmas Day of 2002, lottery ticket sales hit an all-time high. Since it was so big, stores were selling lottery tickets quicker than ever at 3:26 p.m. West Virginians purchased as many as possible to win the prize. The astounding amount of 15 persons purchasing a lottery ticket every second was the average. Some would only invest a few bucks in the hopes of becoming wealthy. When Jack spent $100 on many lottery tickets, not even he seemed to notice. He chose the numbers at random and watched to see what would happen. There's a match. It was anticipated to be a large victory when the newscasters revealed the Powerball numbers on Christmas Eve at 11 p.m. Jack had already gone to bed since it was late evening. Jewel, his devoted and optimistic spouse, awoke him to inform him of what she had just heard on Charleston's Channel 3 news station. Jack's numbers had lined up 4 times out of 5 like a lotto win. They didn't know what the 4 matches signified at the moment. Even though they estimated that he had earned at least $100,000, Jack remained in bed. He awaited the next day before returning to his regular schedule. Jack didn't even realize his life had altered until he got to his construction work. Constantly operating. Like any other day, Jack awoke in the morning and headed to his construction job, little suspecting that his life had taken a dramatic turn in the previous few hours. He had worked since he could remember as a 14-year-old kid from a low-income family in the West Virginia mountains because he had no other option. Ultimately, Jack founded one of the biggest construction companies today, Diversified Enterprises Construction, and although he has earned a good living off of it, he still works there daily. Because he was the president of the Putnam County firm at the time, it was already estimated that he was worth $17 million before he purchased the lottery tickets. Examining the news. As he has done for his entire adult life, Jack switched on the TV at 5:15 in the morning as he was getting ready to leave home. Jack knew his ticket was a match, but what were the chances that he was the winning Powerball? After all, only 4 of his numbers matched. The winning numbers flashed across the screen, and the numbers Jack had seen the night before were incorrect. All 5 of the numbers on Jack's lottery ticket were a match. He heard in the news that the winning Powerball ticket had been sold at his favorite morning stop, the C&L Super Serve, near his house. Gathering his millions. That's when it hit him. Jack Whittaker had won $314.9 million. After deciding to take the lump sum, which yielded a one-time payout of $113,386,407.77 after taxes were deducted, Jack declared to reporters that his life would not change and that he would take the money to live comfortably with the rest of his family. He knew exactly how he would spend the winnings, and his granddaughter, Brandy Bragg, was equally certain about how she wanted to spend them. First things first. Jack continued to try to spend his winnings philanthropically, at least at first. When he won the lottery, he returned to the C&L Super Serve and gave his favorite biscuit maker, Brenda, a crisp $100 bill. Brenda was so surprised by the big tip that she didn't even realize Jack had won the Powerball. His granddaughter, Brandy, was only 15 when Jack won the Powerball. When the family appeared on several broadcasts, she told one reporter that she wanted to use some of Jack's Powerball money to buy a blue Mitsubishi Eclipse and meet the rapper Nelly. Putting something back. Though it didn't happen immediately, Brandy eventually got her dream car. After winning the lottery, Jack's first thing was to continue paying it forward. He thought he might as well go above and beyond, and Brenda was the one who served him the winning ticket. At the time, Brenda worked for only $6 an hour at the C&L Super Serve, so Jack bought her a house in a nice neighborhood worth $123,000. He also bought her a new Jeep Cherokee and gave her a $45,000 check. He explained that he wouldn't have a dime of that money if it weren't for her selling him the winning ticket. Contributing to church. After winning the lottery, Jack told reporters that he wanted to donate many of his winnings to his religious community since he and his wife were frequent churchgoers. He said his religious community had greatly helped him throughout the years, so he wanted to give back to them. And he did just that. He pledged about 10% of his overall payout to his local churches, mainly those associated with the Church of God. Jack said, "I want to be a good example. I want to make people proud of what happens with this winning. I want to promote goodwill and help people." All new church. Remember that Jack pledged 10% of his winnings to his religious community, which comes out to about $13 million. This means that even after building the new facility, his church never had to worry about running out of money. Jack's donations paid off for his church community. With his donations, they had enough money to build a new house of worship. Their new church in Hurricane, West Virginia, was a multi-million-dollar facility. Establishing his foundation. Subsequently, Jack used $14 million to establish the Jack Whittaker Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose only goal was to feed and clothe the impoverished in rural West Virginia. Before COVID, rural West Virginia had the country's sixth highest poverty rate. In 2002, the state's poverty rate was 17.9%, while the national average was only 12.4%. As a result, the foundation was much needed in the community. Jack was truly committed to giving back wherever he could. Out of control. But behind the scenes, things weren't all sunshine and roses. Jack eventually started spending his lottery winnings extremely quickly, and he even started giving his granddaughter, Brandy, who was 17 at the time, a huge allowance, $2,000 a week from her grandfather. On top of that, he bought her 4 cars. On 2020, Jack stated, "She can only drive 1 car at a time. I'm proud of the fact that she's got 4 cars." Unfortunately, he would soon realize that he had overindulged his granddaughter, and she ended up paying the highest price. Even worse modifications. Even worse, those close to Jack soon began to notice that his personality had begun to change, becoming more impulsive and authoritative. It was later revealed that within just a few days of his big win, Jack began acting on vices when he showed up at his local strip club, the Pink Pony, with a large stack of cash. The club owners said they knew they were in trouble eventually when they realized that that stack of cash amounted to a whopping $50,000. They said no one had ever entered their club with that much money. Simple objective. Many people who knew Jack before he won the lottery said they could tell he had started to change from just an average guy to someone who expected to be treated a certain way because he had money. In addition to having incredibly high expectations, he carried a lot of cash around with him, making him a prime target for robberies and other misfortunes. Jack eventually learned this lesson the hard way when people approached him out of the blue asking for financial payouts, and he would genuinely give them money without hesitation. However, his problems didn't stop there. Family has it. After winning the lottery, Jack seemed to throw himself into his vices, but his granddaughter Brandy fared no better. She was practically getting everything she wanted, and eventually she started using all that money on drugs and other addictive substances, which was the direct cause of her downfall. Brandy would also go on shopping sprees, spoiling herself and her boyfriend, Jesse Tribble, to the point where Jesse's father became concerned about his son having a girlfriend who would spend that much money at the drop of a hat, and he soon discovered that his suspicions were justified. Left and right. Jack was robbed multiple times, and he would always find himself in trouble when he visited the racetrack, which he liked to do frequently. However, Jack continued to live his normal life despite the pile of cash he carried with him everywhere he went. As we previously mentioned, people would appear out of nowhere and tell Jack their sob story about why they felt wronged, needed money, and felt like Jack owed them. Many occurrences. Jack frequently traveled around with enormous cash. Once, robbers broke into his truck and were lucky enough to escape with a briefcase full of $545,000 that Jack had left in the passenger seat. Another time, a dancer manager and general manager who worked at the strip club Jack frequented often had a plot to drug him and take all of his money. Another occasion was when Jack lost $200,000 to people who took advantage of him. However, Jack never stopped carrying all that cash around. Things get serious. In the meantime, Brandy was growing more and more dependent on drugs. All of the money her grandfather was giving her was going toward drugs like methadone, oxycodone, and cocaine, which she was also selling to others, including her boyfriend, Jesse. Jack attempted to support his granddaughter by checking her into 3 rehab centers, but nothing worked for Brandy. Jesse was also struggling with addiction. After a brief breakup, he returned to live with his family for a while, but they soon reconciled, and before long, Brandy discovered him face down on a mattress, having overdosed on a combination of cocaine, methadone, and meperidine. His granddaughter addicted. After Jesse passed away, Brandy took it hard and started to spiral out of control. Her grandfather tried to help, but she refused, saying, "You really can't help me. I don't want help. I want to keep on taking drugs. That's all I want." Jack was hurt by this statement and began to blame Brandy's addiction for everything that happened after. Shortly after Jesse passed away, Brandy stopped talking to her grandfather, who she used to talk to every day, and dropped out of high school. 11 days later, she was found dead, wrapped in a plastic tarp, and dumped behind a van. Although her cause of death was listed as undetermined, there was a significant amount of drugs in her system. More unfavorable information. A few years after Brandy's death, Jack and Jewel's daughter, Ginger Whittaker Bragg, passed away at the age of 42 after a protracted battle with cancer. Unfortunately, the bad news doesn't stop there. Jewel, whom he had known since elementary school, filed for divorce in 2005, unhappy with what winning the lottery had done to her husband and her family. She even repeatedly expressed the wish that she had torn up that ticket. Ultimately, if you thought Jack Whittaker's life couldn't get any worse, think again. A few days after he remarried, his new wife was at one of his new homes in Bland County, Virginia, when it caught fire. Luckily, she escaped unharmed, but the house was declared a total loss the following day. To make matters worse, the house was uninsured. On June 27, 2020, Jack Whittaker passed away at the age of 72 from natural causes. He had nearly gone bankrupt by the time of his death, having dealt with robberies, scammers, alcohol, divorces, and more in the years after his lottery win. I believe that there is always someone else who wants to have what you have. In 2007, Jack told the Associated Press, "I'm only going to be remembered as the lunatic who won the lottery. I'm not proud of that. I wanted to be remembered as someone who helped many people." His life story almost reads like a cautionary tale warning children that money does not buy happiness.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon